Trump's fresh attempt at asserting naval control in Hormuz runs headlong into insurmountable operational roadblocks and Iranian resistance. Is Project Freedom no actual naval escort mission, just limited U.S. Navy route planning assistance for commercial shipping? 15,000 troops backed by 100-plus aircraft deployed to guarantee safe passage for tankers sailing directly under Iran's watchful gaze. Iran erupts in fury over Trump's provocative announcement. Is a fresh showdown brewing between U.S. Navy and IRGC? Iran brands Trump's humanitarian operation blatant breach of ceasefire, positioning it as deliberate bid to restart regional war. Donald Trump has announced the launch of Project Freedom, a U.S.-led initiative aimed at helping dozens of merchant ships stranded in and around the Strait of Hormuz, starting from May 4th. Trump described the operation as a humanitarian gesture intended to assist neutral country vessels and their crews caught in the war zone, many of which are running low on supplies while waiting for safe passage. However, U.S. officials later clarified to outlets such as the Wall Street Journal that Project Freedom would not involve direct naval escorts in the way his initial remarks implied. Instead, the White House outlined the creation of a maritime coordination cell that will identify and share safe routes through the Strait, clear of mines and high-risk areas, while coordinating with commercial shipping lines and allied navies. This signals a more limited, advisory role for the U.S. military than the image of warships physically shepherding tankers through the choke point that Trump's announcement initially suggested. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "For the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways, so that they can freely and ably get on with their business. Many of these ships are running low on food, and everything else necessary for large-scale crews to stay on board in a healthy and sanitary manner." Unquote. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has confirmed that its forces will begin supporting Project Freedom from May 4th, integrating the initiative into its broader regional maritime security posture. CENTCOM has framed the mission as critical for both regional security and global economic stability, given that the Strait of Hormuz normally carries roughly 1/5 of the world's seaborne oil and LNG traffic. The command says more than 100 land and sea-based aircraft, including maritime patrol planes, fighters, and surveillance platforms, will provide surveillance, protection, and rapid response capabilities along the agreed safe corridors. Multi-domain unmanned systems, such as drones and unmanned surface vessels, will also be deployed to monitor mine-like threats, detect suspicious boats, and enhance maritime domain awareness without fully committing large warships. Around 15,000 U.S. service members across the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman are expected to contribute to Project Freedom, mainly in support, logistics, and intelligence roles, underscoring the scale of the operation even if direct combat is being avoided. Meanwhile, Iran has warned that any U.S. intervention in the Strait of Hormuz could be interpreted as a violation of the ceasefire framework, escalating diplomatic and military tensions. Lawmaker Ibrahim Azizi, head of the Iranian Parliament's Foreign Policy Committee, stated that any move by the U.S. Navy into the Strait under the guise of freedom of navigation would trigger serious consequences. Ibrahim Azizi said, and I quote, "Any American interference in the new maritime regime of the Strait of Hormuz will be considered a violation of the ceasefire. The Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf would not be managed by Trump's delusional posts. No one would believe blame game scenarios." Unquote. Trump, however, has warned that any attempt to interfere with the operation would be dealt with forcefully, suggesting that the United States is prepared to respond militarily if its role in the Strait of Hormuz is challenged. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts to end the conflict remain deadlocked despite a halt in hostilities, with both sides still insisting on different security arrangements and guarantees before agreeing to a lasting deal. Tehran has repeatedly stated that it has not closed the strait but has instead imposed a new framework, arguing that it is merely introducing stricter rules to manage traffic amid the ongoing crisis. Under new regulations, as per Tehran, vessels need to obtain permission before transiting the Strait of Hormuz, with Iranian authorities saying coordination is necessary to avoid incidents in the crowded waterway. Iranian officials argue that the measures are a sovereign right to ensure security amid what they describe as aggression. Iran is hardening its stance over Hormuz, just as the IRGC publicly warned that Trump's choices have shrunk to either war or what they brand humiliating bad deal. Deputy Parliament Speaker Ali Niksad has warned that conditions in the Strait of Hormuz will not revert to their pre-war status, signaling that Tehran sees the current leverage as permanent. Speaking on May 2nd, Niksad described Hormuz as Iran's natural right, and even likened the waterway to the country's atomic bomb, a metaphor for the pressure it can exert on global energy flows. He vowed Iran will not step back from its position in the strait, praising residents of Hormuzgan province and the armed forces there for leaving the enemy helpless during the crisis. Niksad also revealed MPs are drafting a law that would permanently bar Israeli-flagged vessels and restrict passage for hostile states like the US, putting legal teeth behind Tehran's threat.
What is certain is that we will not step back from the Strait of Hormuz, and it will not return to its pre-war state, and the people of Hormuzgan province, along with the armed forces stationed there, have carried out a significant task. The enemy was left helpless, and although U.S. President Donald Trump declared he would reopen the strait that had been closed, he was unable to do so. He has now raised the issue of a blockade. Be certain that this too will fail. Under the law that will be adopted, vessels belonging to the Zionist regime will under no circumstances be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Hostile countries, headed by the United States, will also not have the right of passage. Other vessels wishing to transit will do so under the law we enact, and with authorization obtained from the Commander-in-Chief and placed at the disposal of our armed forces. We will provide services such as safety, environmental protection, and guidance for vessels, and we will charge them fees for these services. This is common practice worldwide, and the revenues will be used to strengthen our defensive capabilities, as well as to support people's livelihoods and complete and rebuild the country's infrastructure.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.